Hello everybody, I'm back with a new Echo Chamberlain reaction video, and it's about the alphabet community just kind of permeating film and media in general. Is like not necessarily that is like a bad thing inherently, but it's just how much and how frequent is the issue is that is kind of the driving point. I'm curious to know what his thoughts are because he's always put things so eloquently. Uh, Definitely check out his content on YouTube, and definitely follow me on my YouTube channel and Twitch as I stream video games, reactive videos, as well as review content. So, without further ado, let's check out Entertainment is Officially Too Gay. Had to use rainbow in order to avoid like some kind of Twitch, censorship thing.
The first time, I couldn't believe prose could be so exquisite. The melancholy in Tchaikovsky's works is devastating. Thomas Mann's Death in Venice, elegiac, and Freddie Mercury's mastery of Wembley, almost regal. So it is possible for a straight person like myself to have had his life deeply informed by gay culture. And for me to look at current-day gay representation in mainstream entertainment and see an often indulgent, self-insert, creatively lightweight, identity-preoccupied, agenda-driven piling in of representation. A kind that co-ops existing intellectual properties, seeing them as customizable, that can be brought up to speed with modern progressive ideals and reflect the lived experience of writers who over-prioritize wanting certain viewers to think, I can see myself in this character, over wanting the whole audience to think, I'd really like to be this character, resulting in narcissistic, low-stakes, aesthetically thin storytelling, especially when grafted onto legacy franchises. This is not a hit piece. It's a disappointed, liberal humanist critique of how identity signaling is crowding out myth, aspiration, and aesthetic discipline. So I'm not going to take kindly or pay much heed to anyone fragile and doctrinaire enough to see me as insensitive when I say that this overindulgence has become kind of ridiculous. Star Trek Starfleet Academy is a circus of gay representation and visibility without restraint, proportionality, or especially caring whether it's excessive. An episode part written by a gay man who rhapsodizes on and on in blog posts about identity and representation features a lesbian actress and another lesbian actress whose lesbian characters are in an on-screen relationship, whilst this actress is also lesbian, playing a hologram. This Chionian fish creature in human guise is bisexual, and when he eats bananas, he vomits up glitter, and he is in a relationship with this Klingon who has two dads, and who opts to wear a dress, who flirts with another gay guy at a bar, and tensions manifest during a dancing scene about whose boyfriend is dancing and flirting with whom, and there is a possibly trans mad cabaret alien bartender.
And all the things you just listed is exactly why people call it woke in a negative connotation. Because all that in one go, it's probably fun to have like a gay character in a thing and not it be his or her own sole identity. But when you got like a laundry list of stuff all at once in a particular show, every episode, that is woke. And you get shields out there to and try to mock people for pointing this out without taking some self-realization. Probably because they want to, get like that red carpet little invitation and get like the one-on-one interview with the director or whatever, so you can be the first one to put this stuff out on your channel to get the clicks, which generates revenue, which equal money. So it's all about money to a lot of them. I bet you deep down they know this stuff is kind of, in a generous sense of the word, a lot. It's a lot. And this kind of stuff need to be seriously tampered down a bit, man.
I'm disappointed in your species.
Maybe you're a Star Wars fan. How about The Acolyte, written by a lesbian who cast her wife as a central character and which features a coven of lesbian space witches, and also features a singing and dancing sequence, and a Jedi is played by a gay actor, and this Jedi is also played by a gay actor. And the main actress is also either...
I didn't even know that part. Those two guys. Because I knew that white dude was clearly like a beta male. But you notice it in these kind of things, if there was any semblance of a decent guy that isn't some kind of monster, these guys are usually depicted as weak men or incompetent or goofballs, or they're like pedestalizing the females without them earning that pedestalization. It's just like putting in the viewpoint of a woman, because a woman wrote a lot of this stuff, or or maybe like some beta male gay man, to make it those kind of guys who aren't the bad guy being depicted so unthreatening to them. Because any guy, with some legit testosterone who is competent and put his foot down is deemed threatening. Anytime you're direct with a woman, or anytime you stern with a woman, or anytime you voice your opinion and stand on business, it's like, oh my God, how dare he? It's considered mean. You're a mean man. How dare you not validate my feelings, mean man?
Pansexual or bisexual, and the writer and showrunner openly stated that her identity would of course inform the composition of the show, and the coven of lesbian space witches all die when their minds short out simultaneously with some spiritual aneurysm.
Oh, I've been internalizing a really complicated situation in my head.
Or maybe Doctor Who, where a heavily featured trans character is portrayed as essentially saving the cosmos with her transgenderism, and who chastises the Doctor for being a male-presenting Time Lord, and the writer is gay, and then the next Doctor is gay, and every episode of the series features the Doctor crying, and flamboyant pizzazz, dance numbers, a scene where the Doctor is dancing in a club, wearing gender-ambiguous clothing, a gay kiss and a Bridgerton knockoff, a reference to a sexual connection with Harry Houdini, and a standalone episode featuring a nemesis called Maestro, played by a two-time RuPaul Drag Race winning drag queen who flounces around and is shown correcting a fuddy-duddy music teacher about their pronouns. Problem is, what feels to these writers and showrunners like brave, symbolic milestones of sexual diversity often come across as gratingly, on-the-nose self-inserts and substitutions for the compelling and impactful universal stuff that ought to be at the heart of drama. For them, the imagery of a Klingon on a dress is a moment of empowering boundary pushing, but to everyone else it's irritating posturing, and the things that actually define the spirit of the show get underemphasized: sacrifice, wrestling with ethics, science, and philosophy, and the betterment of all through institutional and moral progress. The cheap thrill inclusivity symbolism is narcissistic because it relishes the drama of being provocative, relishes the drama of courageously and high-mindedly defending such posturing against bigoted pushback. It loves pushing gender and sexual identities as extremely interesting elements of characters, while inadequately focusing on the content of their character, or whether the audience finds them appealing in terms of personality, comportment, depth, or charisma. Now, if you can compartmentalize your sense of aesthetics, appreciation for the franchises in earlier golden ages, and 100 other common-sense variables, and still be totally cool with all of that, then consider the outcomes, or we should really say the fallout. Doctor Who's latest season plummeted to the lowest ratings in 6 decades of the show. The Acolyte was by far the worst performing Star Wars series on Disney+, and was cancelled unceremoniously after just 1 season because it had no audience and cost a staggering amount of money. And Starfleet Academy looks to be headed down the same route, an incredibly disapproving and irked fanbase, irrespective of a sympathetic entertainment media's benign assessments.
It don't matter. None of this matters.
Now, new adaptations and interpretations can be amazing and keep the arts fresh. But when the source material is so wrenched askew and so tastelessly maligned into some identity politics preoccupied new form, it is, again, a kind of narcissism. I can remodel this stuff so flagrantly because I deserve visibility. Those like me deserve representation. Let's see how far we can push it. Let's refuse boundaries. Let's positively reshape perspectives. Let's show how worthy we are, and do it in a spirit of whimsical, relatable fun. And there's a further narcissism of being right either way. Either with the enthralling hit of a media...
Do you think, like, because I know, like, Rachel Zegler got in a lot of trouble, but she, you know, at least overseas, found some work, you know, with, like, plays and stuff. So it's going to be, like, at least maybe another year, possibly, before anybody's comfortable enough to put her in, like, a film. It's probably going to be indie film, more than likely. But somebody like the chick from The Acolyte, who's, like, the main lead, I'm not sure what she's doing right now. I'm pretty sure she's, like, you know, radioactive for a good while. I'm not even sure she's going to be in any plays. She comes from a pretty privileged family, so I doubt she's not hurting for money. But, yeah, she is going to, maybe if Leslie Allen is working in any kind of space, she'll probably get her some jobs. But right now, nobody else outside of her is not looking towards her for any kind of role. But she is just like, she's making like a diss track for people who dare to criticize The Acolyte and its crappy writing and crappy performance outside of maybe a couple of people.
immediate acceptance and affirmation, or abidingly knowing you're right, even though ratings and reviews are terrible, because that must mean you're not wrong, you're just ahead of the curve, and society is yet to catch up or be ready to cope with the enlightened, landmark depictions of representation on screen. In other words, people may be a bit on the fence and slow to adjust to a Klingon in a dress right now, but in 10 years it will be nothing major at all, and you will be thought of as the ones who blazed that trail. Let's lay it out right. Gay showrunners and writers have to pass things. Just because you're taking criticism doesn't mean you're being picked on specifically for your orientation. You're just as susceptible to as much criticism and calling out as anyone else. No more, no less. And it is a frustrating modern trope of writers and showrunners to lazily conflate the legitimate criticism with the bigoted stuff. In fact, there's a kind of onus on you to make an effort to pass those two things and engage with the legitimate criticism and not indulge the lame entertainment media habits of attributing stuff so reflexively to a bigoted old fanbase that is...
And most of them cannot do that or will not do that because they all have to admit some level of fault on their own or some level of laziness on their own in terms of material, because it's all about identity politics instead of a legitimate story. Because, you know, yeah, that's what we asked them, at least the decent people out there who putting this criticism out there. We are, of course, there's some level of mocking, of course, because this is all a joke. You can't look at a Klingon in a skirt and not make some level of joke here and there. But these are legitimate criticisms. A large part of it is, whether it's with Starfleet Academy or The Acolyte or Doctor Who, our criticisms, by and large, is legit criticisms for fan bases who, because a lot of those things are, you know, originated for the boy fan base. And as it grew, more girls and anybody who's identified as anything glommed onto it by osmosis because there were great stories that we all can relate to, not just a fraction of the population. But as soon as, like, as Echo Chamberlain kind of listed it, you know, early on in the video, that this is so woke that, like, you got all these, it isn't just one gay character. You have, like, you know, a bunch of girl bosses, you know, a multicultural people with scarce amount of white men, and even probably scarcer straight white men, in this thing, and then you got like a transgender bartender. It's just like it's a lot. And at any point where he's so concerned with getting all of these check marks done, I doubt you had any time to formulate a legit story for every episode that culminates in arcs for each of these characters that we can, glom onto, and then we can live in famously in history. Like, take something like any one of the Power Rangers from over the multiple generations. They were definitely like diverse, but is diverse through organic means, and through those even go with Mighty Morphin. This is go with Mighty Morphin. We have like a good chemistry with the characters. There are certain arcs with each character that we can glom onto and like identify which each character. Even if you're not a girl, you can understand Kimberly to a degree. A lot of young guys, grew up loving Kimberly, and sure, most cases because they wanted to marry Kimberly. I wanted to marry Kimberly. She's amazing. But she wasn't a girl boss. She was still feminine, but also a badass. She was a well-written, layered character. She had like, her own, little feelings towards like, Jason, and like some towards like Tommy. But these are things that, everybody can like understand, and we end up loving. Her identity isn't just girl. That does not like make a long-lasting character. But we had smart writers at that time, or even like the other like Power Rangers shows that came later. They had smart writers that make every character stand out, but also layered. It isn't just one identity. There is no concern with giving somebody affirmation or then telling them consistently how good you are. There are like qualities that you dislike about them. There's qualities that you do like about them. But that's what makes it an interesting layered character. But like the writers behind Starfleet Academy or Doctor Who or The Acolyte were so concerned with just trying to make everything like the perfect representation to like let's be honest, they was trying to indoctrinate young kids like, oh, look how this is how it should be. No one wants to live like you're like the gay neighborhood in San Francisco. Okay, the world is a lot bigger and a lot diverse than that, and not just diverse of skin or identity, but of thought. Because there's no person or no consideration around Starfleet Academy that's considerate towards anybody from the Midwest. There's no care for any like or respect for anybody who's a straight man, let alone a straight white man. This is terrible writing. This is a terrible way of representing Star Trek and its fan base. There's no respect to the continuity or the source material you're adapting. You're trying to rewrite everything, and then just like with the Acolyte, you're trying to rewrite everything to fit your own narrative, because you have no respect of the man who started this. You think you know better, and that's why this is going to go down in flames.
Morbidly resentful towards sexual diversity. That's a cop-out and played out these days. If you know the Mary Sue or the Hollywood Reporter or the Rap is going to lean into narratives of humble, aspiring LGBT creatives beset with online rage and having to weather irrational hate, then that's really just a kind of media safety blanket, an indulgence of your indulgences. so that your self-image as a cultural pioneer who has abided such slights and had to push harder their whole life just gets more affirmed.
And I feel bad for Daphne King, who I'm pretty sure she was like super excited to be part of Star Wars, but it's the crappiest Star Wars imaginable. Golly, man, because she's a great actor. So was the Squid Games actor. That's was the two people I was referencing. These two are great actors, and the fact that they have to be a part of the crappiest. Because imagine how excited you are if you get like, oh my god, I got booked to be in a Star Wars project. You telling all your friends and family, and they're so happy for you, and it's like a big mark, like a good notch in your belt of filmography. But little did you realize it's probably the most crappy material that I'm pretty sure they read the script. But I'm pretty sure they look at it as like, oh my god, this is crap. But they probably wouldn't say that because it's still Star Wars. You never know. But I can still put it on my resume. But I'm not sure if well, it's a good thing that they did other stuff that was of notable recognition and respect. Otherwise, if this is your first time in a Star Wars project and you have this on your resume and it's the crappy Star Wars in history, people will look at you skeptically.
Extent that the grievances and bad reviews and YouTube videos become evidence, a kind of branding of authenticity. My community, my friends have a shared, compassionate mindset about what we have to go through, and now I can be influential on behalf of people that matter to me. The Klingon in address is important because he has crossed the threshold into becoming fully, publicly realized as a character. It matters because it encourages a wider sense of safety. The more such gender and sexual diversity is portrayed and normalized, the safer it will be for people to reveal and express their true selves, with a lesser likelihood of harassment or bigotry. Therefore, the logic goes, it's important to be bold enough to push it, to go there, because it is making people safer, in the long run, to be themselves. Who would not want to encourage that? Who would want to stand?
And that woman got the nerve, the gall, to dress like Padme when she knows she was she was the crappiest actress that I ever seen. And it's crazy because she's been in, well, she was a little kid at the time, but she was in the Hunger Games. She was alright for what I remember. But she drunk that woke Kool-Aid like it was Kool-Aid. I'd be like, any real Star Wars fan, we like, take that crap off. You have no right to wear the same clothes as Padme. The same clothes as Natalie Portman. Take that crap off. You did not earn that. You don't have the right.
In the way of the alleviation of diverse people's vulnerability and anxieties. To mock at such depictions on screen, therefore, isn't so much an aesthetic mockery, it's a mockery of, and even undermining of the impulse toward well-being. So such criticism must not only be wrong in terms of taste or quality, it must be simply wrong, full stop. Thing is, who's really ahead of the curve on all this is really a matter of perspective. You see, humble YouTubers like myself have developed a kind of long-range forecasting of culture these days and have a canny sense of which way things ultimately turn. We were castigating and laughing our asses off at the Acolyte in real time, essentially knowing, in real time, that it was a preposterous load of twaddle and hokum, a vanity project made for an audience of one, where attempted or assumed enlightened experience and all the pathos and poignancy that it was supposed to channel and reveal, actually only revealed a massive blind spot. A showrunner given too much sympathetic leeway, and believing that personal morbidities and leaning into personal characteristics of identity would somehow produce compelling art that would be enjoyed by the masses. We were uploading videos ripping into the identitarian prissiness of Doctor Who in real time, well ahead of the cultural curve when the ratings finally started to come in, and there was simply nowhere for the writers to hide, no way to spin it, and no one but themselves to blame for all the identity overindulgence. Lastly, we've seen peaks and troughs and fads and corrections. 4 or 5 years ago, gaming went through a period of almost fantastical, surreal, phantasmagorical, identity politics progressive co-opting. An age of wonder when stroppy Gen Z proto-Karens lectured gamers non-stop about their behavior. Opportunist progressive feminist consultancy firms sprouted online, offering their services of making gaming more palatable to a largely imaginary cohort of easily triggered gamers, smoothing down the feminine contours of game characters, and introducing or insisting upon a carnivalesque troupe of fat, vitiligo-managing, polyamorous, trans and intersex characters, the options of pronouns, and even the choice to have top scars as a customizable option. All of this culminating with the infamous, peerless, forever wheezingly hilarious, epoch-clinching moment when a character sits down to dinner and announces,
"So, I'm non-binary."
That gaming period serves as a useful and clear analogy, because again, we YouTubers watched this play out and weighed in incredulously and disparagingly in real time, in the thick of it, seeing it for what it was. Preposterous overindulgence by a cadre of identitarians who placed identity preoccupations ahead of compelling content, ahead of relatability, ahead of audience connection, and ultimately, inevitably, ahead of market realities, with a succession of lamentable flops, some barely played at all, and whisked off the game servers within a week, after years of collective effort in environments of toxic positivity. So, I'm not going to take any lectures about insensitivity, or whatever else, because firstly, I can define for myself what being ahead of the curve means, and secondly, more importantly, I'm fundamentally liberal, have varied from milquetoast to centrist left-wing, am educated in the humanities, and authored a traditionally published literary novel featuring a gay main character. So, raising the ire of conservatives is one thing, but if you're causing someone as nominally sympathetic as me to wince and cringe and switch off in contempt at the lack of quality and the shameless co-opting, doesn't that at least provoke a twinge of self-reflection about assumptions, proportionality, and who's rarely coming across as having a bit of an attitude?
Yeah, and I feel the exact same way. It's just, yeah, I grew up Democrat. Well, after the whole Charlie Kirk situation, I just got more moderate now. With all the people's responses after his death was like so just pathetic on their part of these so-called Democrats. But yeah, like I grew up like probably like 90s, early 2000s type of Democrat mindset, where it's like, yeah, like you deserve your like gay rights, and yeah, and certainly like, it's not like a big deal that you have like a gay character here and there in a film or a project. It's not a big deal. And of course, like, some diversity, with our media, but it's the way it's going about it. The results is like piss poor. Because it'll be an entirely different thing if you decided to make Doctor Who a gay man. That's one thing, but you'll make it a whole lot easier on yourself if you had great writing material. It isn't like you make the character super flamboyant and wearing dresses and omnisex clothing and making out with historical figures that clearly wasn't gay at the, realistically, but like, Doctor Who just got that riz to make straight men gay in the time period that wouldn't really be a thing. Then it's like you're not taking the material seriously. Okay, it's not on paper. It's not a big deal, but it's just how it was executed was terrible, and you compound the problem by acknowledging that you have terrible writing material. You're lazy, and you just doing it to check off boxes or push on a particular agenda. You ignore or you make the story so third or fourth important on the list, and it's like, and the studio heads need to grow some balls and actually look through this and actually make some, and not just try to go with the wind blows, and actually take stock. Okay, this is what you're doing with Doctor Who. Yeah, we went through testing here. It's like it's not proving out beneficial. It ain't talking about doing it so within the Hollywood scope of things. We branched out to get various different people from different parts of the country to see how they, or at least how Doctor Who fans from different parts of the country, to see what they think. And if the consensus is this is kind of crappy and lazy, we're not giving you the green light. And not be scared of getting boycotted or hate on Twitter from a small minute of the community to bully you into making a crap product just so they can feel validated or seen. It's like, come on. It's like, I like Batwoman and Constantine not because how they identify, because they actually have great story material. They got great characters outside, the whole part of them, Constantine being bisexual and Batwoman being lesbian. That's just a byproduct. That's not the main course. They treating this like with Doctor Who, Starfleet Academy, and Acolyte. They treated it like a main course instead of just a byproduct. You should have made the story first. Make some deep layered characters first. That is the first thing out the gate you should be concerned with. The last thing you should be concerned with will be their sexual identity, or they need to be this particular race. Because let's be honest, they had these little a lot of these projects get all these green lights because in order to get awards nominations or what have you, they gotta fulfill certain quotas. Gotta have a certain amount of women, a certain amount of gay people, a certain amount of trans people, a certain amount of this and that and the third. So they too concerned with doing all that stuff instead of making a legit good story and taking a risk on making it work. They want guarantees nowadays. So I was like, oh wow, people want, or at least at the time, people want this kind of stuff. Okay, just make a gay Doctor Who and let them have full reign of doing whatever they want, because that's where we think the money is going to go. Now we've proven to the contrary. Because I shared the same sentiment as Echo. It's like, I'm not bigoted in one way, shape, or form. I am not. Contrary to my critiques, I am not. I am all for female representation. I'm all for having a gay person in a particular material. It's just how you do it. The end result, what you is you bring this person on because it looks good on to the academy that you have this amount of gay people on your project, or do you actually have a story that facilitates or at least backs up your reason to have this amount of women or this amount of person of the LGBT community? Do you have good material to back it up? Because if you are slacking in that area, then the whole entire thing comes crumbling down like a stack of cards. That's just my take. I'm curious to know what you guys think. I will see you guys in a little bit for another material to react to. Take care, and I'll see you all soon. Oh, and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. I'm curious to know. Do you share the same sentiments as Echo, or do you disagree with him on certain parts or all the parts? Be respectful in the comments, and I'm curious to know your critiques. And yeah, I'll see y'all later. Peace.